Diary Entry 5, My Cluster, Narcissistic Family. My cousin Laura contacted me today to ask if I would like to go on holiday this summer. I have not heard from her in over a year. We are not in contact regularly, but we spent 1 year together, when she lived at my home for a short while, when she was 16 and I was 13 years old. I am sure she is either narcissistic, or toxic, as are most of the women in my family. In the call she said, "I will be honest, I did not think of you, but me and my family need 3 more people, to reduce the coach fees." I ignored that passive aggression, and got excited for the holiday, as I know my children would love it, so I agreed. Laura said we could lodge in their rented apartments, and she will let me know the very reduced fee for this accommodation. Laura called back soon after, and said, the apartments no longer had spaces for my children and I needed to get my own apartment, which was now more than 10 times the price I expected. I was still so excited, I stayed compliant, and said I would check it out, and book by Monday. It was Saturday. Laura then called for a 3rd time soon after, and said, I would need to book now, in case the apartments are fully booked by Monday, and they are paying the deposit for the coach today. I said I would, and ended the call, but by now I was feeling overwhelmed. What just happened? I reflected for a very short time, and then I sent a message that I can no longer attend. Pre my therapy session last week, I would have been very hard on myself. Why did it take me 3 calls, and being overwhelmed, before I recognized the passive aggression in those phone calls? How dare Laura inform me she is just inviting me to make up the numbers for the coach? How dare she offer me low-cost accommodation, then willy-nilly say, book your own apartment? And how dare she demand I book within 1 hour, after informing me? When I told my therapist about my ex-toxic friends Matthew and Lynn, making contact, from my diary entry 2 and 3, she said I need to respect and honor my progress. Stop being so hard on myself. I also lie to my children, when I do not feel I reacted strongly enough, as I don't want to appear weak, like my mother did. My therapist said this is shaming myself, so be honest with myself. Well, it has helped so much. I am sorry that it took 3 phone calls for me to comprehend, but it is still progression. Previously I wouldn't notice passive aggression for weeks if ever. My great-grandmother, I am sure, was a narcissist. She died in 2010, when I was 28 years old. She and my great-grandfather have 13 children, and each of these 13 children have their own families, and I called them the 13 tribes. Some of my great-grandparents' children married into wealth, some have been very successful in business, and some are alcoholics, pedophiles, and dependent upon the government. My family is big. My great-grandparents had approximately 70 grandchildren, 100 plus great-grandchildren, and more than 50 great-great-grandchildren. I am familiar with most of the 13 tribes, but close with very few. There is also a lot of extended family, through my great-grandparents' siblings. My mum does not speak fondly of our family, and instilled a lot of fear in me towards them. Our tribe is small. I am an only child for my mother, and she also is an only child. My grandmother is a neglectful narcissistic mother, so my mother was cared for by her grandmother. My grandmother parades shamefully around the family, as if we do not exist. She lives abroad, does not visit us, or even let us know she is in the country. I visited her a few times in my 20s. She is cold, and used my toxic friends that I traveled with to triangulate me. Now she visits my friends whenever she comes to our country, and still I have no idea she is here, and my friends didn't use to inform me either. Her 12 siblings are all enablers, but even they felt uncomfortable seeing my friends and their children's photos on my grandmother's wall. She does not have any photos of me or my mother. My grandmother tells her friends that she doesn't have any children. My mum and I visited her together when I was 12 years old. Together they ganged up on me to tell me what a terrible person I was. They were always shaming me. They do not even have a relationship then or now. It is so strange. My great-grandmother divided her children between her 6 girls and 7 boys. She pitched them against each other and took the favor of the boys. My 6 aunties are a mess. Some career-driven, some alcoholics, others spiteful, hateful people, with the exception of one auntie, who seems to have found genuine peace in the Lord. They're a nasty bunch, and one of my earliest memories is falling down some stairs and landing on my face. My great-grandmother and my aunt stood over me cursing, calling me ugly, and that it was my fault. Another auntie used to finish her chicken and give me the bone to suck like I was a dog. I feel triggered and angry now remembering it. Laura is in fact the daughter of my lovely auntie that found the Lord. She has 5 siblings, 10 nieces and nephews, and some of those 10 now have children. This is the family tribe I would have gone on holiday with. I spoke and met my father for the first time in 2013, aged 32. He was rude and annoyed that I got in contact with him. His family forced him to stay in contact. We spoke 3 times, and he blamed me for breaking up his marriage, as his wife did not know about me. His wife was nearly as young as me, and her children the same age as my children, so I do not understand. My mum spoke to him secretly, kept forcing my children to speak with him, and whatever she told him about me, led him to scorn me, and tell me I need God. I am now no contact with him, and since then my mum forwarded my son's number to him, so I had to block him. My family dynamics make me sick to my stomach. I feel guilty when I say this because of my children, but I wish I knew what I knew now, that I stayed no contact with my mum when I moved out at age 18, and I could have lived the majority of my life by now, outside of all this emotional abuse. Recently I have been thinking about changing my phone number, but I am apprehensive. This call from Laura is really gearing me up to make this decision. The truth is, right now I am in a headspace I have never lived in before. I am not living in a constant state of guilt and shame. I could not relax at any given time before, and now I can. I see a new home, new work, and new friends. As I meet myself for the first time, I am lost for words for what I am feeling. My career, which I have been attached to all my life, no longer carries passion in my heart. I have new dreams and new passions, and I just want to keep moving forward. Going no contact with all my abusers has given me so much more life. I had never had regrets. My life has gone reasonably well, but I do feel regret for the first time. I can see that without narcissistic abuse, I could have lived 39 years of my life very differently. I have always played the caregiver role in relationships, described as easygoing because I had no self-expression. I was always shocked if someone thought of me, much like how I felt when Laura initially called. I have never known how to experience pleasure without apprehension, and I've always felt more comfortable giving others pleasure. I have always carried such anger, and did not know why. Now I know it is because I was never allowed a voice growing up. I have always been able to feel everyone's emotions around me, to such a degree it's unhealthy. I know they call this empath. My therapist calls me an empath. But would I be this way if I didn't have to tune into my mother's emotions? I was like my mother's lover my whole life, enmeshed in a disgusting way, so much so, I call it sexual abuse now without the sex. The biggest struggle has been setting boundaries. I had none my whole life, and only learned of the concept in 2016. Because my family tribe is so small, I always felt so guilty about it, and would send my children to their father's side of the family, for all holidays including Christmas. In 2018 and 2019, I hosted 6 family dinners at my home inviting all 13 family tribes. Because there are so many people, I can invite the lot, and whoever turns up it will be a full house. I did it for my children, but I did not enjoy them. I did all the cooking, ordered a bouncy castle, played music, and tried to make it as fun as possible. At the first few dinners there were over 40 people in attendance, but it ended with 3 to 4 people coming by the final 2 dinners. I could tell it was hurting my children's feelings. It was just a mix of narcissistic people in my home. One cousin's disabled child hit another. The child that got hit is from the wealthy obnoxious side of my family. They let the mother of the disabled child know she is failing as a mother, so she left my home crying, to never come back again. The obnoxious bunch would also spend time informing me I do not spend my money correctly. My cousins that never attend anything came to one of my dinners, and then regretted it. A very narcissistic auntie teased them about their father being an alcoholic. My cousins left furious, and said they will never come back. Another narcissistic auntie reminds me of my grandmother, who hates children, and wouldn't stop complaining about the small children making her sick, and she said, "Do not invite me again if there will be children here." Another cousin started to call me after, to boast and triangulate me, about hanging out with another cousin, just because I mentioned wanting to bond with her at the family dinner. My mum was furious about my dinners, and would give me the silent treatment leading up to the day, and throughout. My mother would spend the dinners bad-talking me to entertain the others. The final dinners, I was no contact with my mother by then, but it didn't make them any better. My family is awful, and I regret every dinner I hosted. In 2018 I was a bridesmaid for my cousin Sue, and traveled abroad. She narcissistically abused me many times on the trip. I was put on a table with the children, and away from all the other bridesmaids. Sue brought everyone dressing gowns but me. I was apparently forgotten to be invited to the hen party by accident, that I did not know happened until after the wedding. All the bridesmaids treated me frosty, and I still have no idea why. I was bedbound for 3 days after that wedding, and it broke my heart. I spoke to that cousin once during lockdown, and despite all I have told her about my mother, she actually said, "Come on, you need to end this thing with your mum, gaslighting, and upsetting my nervous system all over again." As for Laura, my cousin who called today, when she lived with me when she was 16, it was hell. She was constantly super nice to me, then extremely horrible to me, when I was 12 years old. She would let me wear all her amazing clothes, and I loved it. When my friends came over, she would embarrass me, and tell everyone they were her clothes. Embarrassing me was her thing. Sometimes my mother and her did it together. I don't remember much, but I do remember feeling awful when she stayed. Laura and her older sister used to call me names, because my father has a different country of origin to my mother's family, so they bullied me about it. One day I told my mum, and she called and made them apologize. I remember thinking my mother really loves me that day. I suspect she was love-bombing me, and had ulterior motives for that narcissistic supply. Ex-friend Lynn, from Diary Entry 4, has sent a flying monkey to call me, but I avoided the call, and still have not listened to her voicemail. More reasons to change my number. I did have an interesting discovery from my ex-friend Matthew. In Diary Entry 3. He phoned for a work-related matter, so I interviewed him secretly, much like I do in my interview with a narcissist SA. I did not get narcissistic vibes from him, I got toxic traits, and very codependent. What I have taken from this, and another similar example, is codependence being narcissistically abused, can appear like the narcissist. It is because when their emotions are controlled, they become more like their abuser, as a form of reactive abuse. I am no doctor, I could be wrong, but I do find that those of us from cluster narcissistic families have plenty experience on narcissism. Thank you for listening to Narcissist Essays, and please subscribe to my channel. Sending lots of love and strength to those of us victimized by narcissists.